The fastest way to experience success in business is eliminating your self-limiting beliefs, which will then clear a pathway to eradicate your mental and emotional blockages from your mind, which will then spearhead ultimate success. For international business coach Daniel Tolson, if you ask him to define his role in helping his clients eliminating those barriers, is where he wants to start. With more than 6,500 case studies into emotional intelligence, Tolson is considered one of the leading business coaches in the space. He shows people how to become successful in business by using scientific and evidence-based methods on how to catapult your influence, accelerate your impact, and unleash your income to new levels. He joined me this week to have a conversation about how to accelerate your businesses to new heights. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to learn how you help to accelerate businesses. Great to see you today, and thank you so very much for being here.
Mate, it's a good pleasure to be here with you, and I love the business world. I grew up around businesses, and it's in my blood, so I like to donate some of this blood to the business people to help them to become more successful.
Yeah, absolutely, and I know you spend your day job helping businesses sort of catapult their influence and accelerate their impact. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about the great work that you do.
100%. My clients come to me for three reasons. The first one is they come for influence. The second, they come for impact. And the third, they come for income. So they want to catapult their influence. They want to become more influential within their teams. They want to become more influential within their families. And they want to accelerate their impact. My clients say, I don't want to wait 40 years to get a promotion. I don't want to wait 40 years to get the gold watch. I want success now. And they also want to unleash new income levels. The money side of it's not just money for money's sake. It's for what they can do with it. And a gentleman that I spoke to recently said, Daniel, 5 billion in sales is not enough. We need to make more. And I said, why? He said, because on 5 billion, we've only been able to feed 2 million homeless people. So they're the three things that my clients want from me. They want to catapult their influence, they want to accelerate their impact, and they want to unleash new income levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Daniel, I'm curious to ask you about how you think personal success, motivation, and goal setting are all interconnected. Because, having a defined plan starts with a vision. So I'm wondering your thoughts on that matter as well.
Well, over my time, Kevin, I've learned about the 5 principles of success. And there's 5 things that all successful people have in common. Firstly, they are goal-oriented. They know where they're going. And what we've learned about goal setting is that fully 85% of our motivation comes from our future. It's where we're going in this lifetime that gives us the motivation. And only around about 15% of our motivation comes from the past and past events. Secondly, successful people are action-oriented. They're not activity-oriented, they're action-oriented. They're looking at how can I take action today to have the biggest impact and get me another step closer to my goal. Thirdly, successful people are always looking around and making sure that they are on track. They constantly calibrate, they measure success, they look at their key result indicators, they look at their key performance indicators, and they make sure the needle is moving in the right direction. The fourth thing I've learned about successful business people is they all have behavioral flexibility. And essentially what that means is they have the ability to get out of their comfort zones. For many people, they're held back by the fear of the unknown. And so what happens is they get trapped in their comfort zone. And fifthly, all successful people operate from a psychology of excellence. They don't focus on perfection. They don't try to get it right the first time. They're always focusing on excellence, which means they're trying to be their very best on any given day. They understand that the game is going to change. They understand they're going to have obstacles, and they do the best with what they've got right now. And that's the 5 things I've learned about successful people.
Yeah, and to that point, Daniel, I'm curious to also follow up by asking you about business diversification and attitudes in business, because, I was born with a cerebral palsy, and I do some work with helping individuals with disabilities get employed. So I'm wondering your thoughts on how we work to create a more inclusive work culture for folks with disabilities and other marginalized groups as well.
One of the things, Kevin, I've learned by living in Taiwan is that Taiwan is a very communal place. And so we're looking out for the collective, not as much as the individual. Where some other places in the world, like America and Australia, are more individualistic societies, and they're looking out more for the individual than for the collective. So here in Taiwan, one thing that I love is I'm now 41, and all the children in my area look up to me and they call me uncle. So they call me shoo-shoo. And that was a quality that we used to have in Australia when I was growing up, but it doesn't exist anymore. So in Taiwan, it's around about 95% Han Chinese, and there's only about 5% expatriates. So being a white Australian man, I really stand out here. My daughter, who's mixed Taiwanese, my wife's Taiwanese, I'm Australian, she said to me one day on the way to school, she said, "Dad, can you drop me off at the front gate?" I said, "That's about 100 yards away." She said, "That's okay, leave me here." And after school, I asked her, I said, "Baby," I said, "why did you want me to leave you at the front gate today?" And she said, "Dad, you have a little bit more meat on you than the other dads." Now, what she meant, Kevin, was I'm 6 foot. I'm a former Australian champion athlete. I'm 101 kilos. And the other Taiwanese dads are significantly smaller in size than me. They're about 5'7" and they weigh about 65 kilos. So my point that I want to make is here in Taiwan, people don't look at me as a foreigner. They look at me as one of the community. And I think this is how we have to approach diversity. We've got to look at each individual for what they can bring to the community. And as the community, we've got to support those individuals. So when I was growing up, the perfect example was my cousin has a very successful mushroom farm. And their next door neighbours had a son with Down syndrome. And he wanted to work. He wanted to add value to his family. He wanted to add value to the business. So on the mushroom farm, he was built for strength. He was strong. He had big muscles and he could lift up heavy things. So at the mushroom farm, he was included in the team of 170 odd people. He was included in there and he knew that he could lift heavy things. So he got a job as a box boy. And he learned to be a box boy. He'd carry the heavy things and he added significant strength to the team. As he grew, as he matured, we would take him out on the mushroom run. So we would deliver hundreds of kilos of fresh mushrooms to the produce market every week, and we would take him along. And he was strong, so he made my job very easy. And we looked at him as somebody who had unique value on the team. So diversity, it's seeing diversity as an opportunity. That's my opinion.
Yeah, 100% of that. And you brought something up that interested me too, Daniel, as former sports reporter, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your former time as an athlete and how it helps you in business. Tell me about it, brother.
Well, for me as a former Australian champion athlete, I had the dream to become an Australian champion the first year I started in the sport. But for 9 consecutive years, I never won. So what I learned there's some really tough competitors out there. And you've got to be able to respect your tough competitors because you can learn a lot about yourself. So as I look back through my sporting history, I started to water ski at around about age 5. And then I was an Australian champion athlete at age 26. So I had been in preparation for 21 years. So my overnight success only took 21 years of practice. And on the way to achieving 3 state championships, to compete in the extreme games, and then to be crowned the Australian champion, I had to overcome a lot of obstacles. There was physical obstacles, Kevin, for me. I had a twisted spine and hips that were out of alignment. My knees also used to buckle and collapse. So I had to ride keeping those limitations in mind. I also had been beaten up and 6 guys tried to kill me on the way to this journey. So I had a fractured arm. I had multiple plates and pins put in my arm. And I had to learn how to ride with limited movement in my arm. And then throughout the journey, my biggest obstacle, it wasn't my body, it was my mind. It wasn't just the mind, it was also my emotions. And fears got in my way. And they really slowed me down. I had a fear of trying and failing. I had a fear of trying a trick and then crashing. And for many years, instead of focusing on landing the trick and riding away successfully, I kept focusing on crashing and burning. And that really set me back. So my biggest takeaway from being an Australian champion athlete was that the mindset was the most important part of being a champion athlete. And once I figured that out, success was easy.
And to that point, Daniel, I know that you work to work with people about mental and emotional blockages. So tell me, how do you do that effectively? And based on your last answer, I'm also curious to ask you about the value of perseverance and how you define that.
Well, for me, I've identified 4 common fears. It doesn't matter if you're starting out in business or if you're already successful in business. There's 4 fears that all of us have to face. The first fear that we have to overcome in business or in our careers or in our personal life is the fear of being taken advantage of. When we have this fear of being taken advantage of, we actually stop asking for help because we're afraid that if we ask for help, somebody's going to take over. We're going to lose control of what's happening. Somebody's going to take advantage of us. So the first fear is a fear of being taken advantage of. We have to overcome that. The second fear is a fear of rejection. And nobody wants to be judged. And what happens is when we start to speak our truth, when we start to stand up and start to move forward towards our goals, we're going to experience resistance. People are going to ask us, why are you doing that? Shouldn't you be playing it safe? It's COVID-19, for God's sake. Save your money. So we've got to face rejection. And that's a big one for people because when it comes to public speaking, people would rather die than stand up and speak publicly. And we know by the latest statistic that at least 99% of adults have a fear of public speaking. And it comes back to rejection. So we have to overcome that. The third fear is a fear of losing our financial stability. And if you've got a career but you want to start your own business, the biggest fear is giving away the paycheck. I've got to walk away from that paycheck. And what's going to happen is as soon as I give up that paycheck, there's no secure income coming in. So that often keeps people trapped in their comfort zone. And then the fourth one is the fear of trying and failing. And this ends up leading to perfectionism. And people say, if I can't do it right the first time, I'm not going to do it. If I can't get it right and I fail, I can't live with failure. and they believe that failure is fatal. They believe that failure is final. So these are the first 4 fears that I have to work with my clients to help them overcome. So the first step in terms of steps on how to overcome it, Kevin, the first thing is self-awareness. We first of all have to become aware of these fears and realize that they're impacting us. So we say, if you can't name it, you can't tame it. So first of all, you've got to recognize this fear and how it's impacting you. The second step is to regulate the fear, which is the ability to control your thoughts. We have more than 70,000 thoughts going through our mind every single day. And it's like this flow of consciousness. And those thoughts influence 95% of our feelings. So if we can get awareness and then we can regulate the thoughts and the feeling, then it's very easy to control those fears. When we do that, then we get a lot of motivation.
Yeah, and Daniel, I'm also fascinated to ask you about inclusive businesses from this perspective. You know, COVID-19 has also allowed a lot of people to re-examine their values. So as we sort of re-emerge from the pandemic, I'm curious to ask you how we create an environment or condition where people feel valued at work and seen, while also making sure that they're productive, and if it's a profitable business, how do we multiply profits?
What I believe in, Kevin, is what's called the science of job matching. And the science of job matching is matching people up to a role that complements their strengths. So in the past, what businesses tend to do is they say, we've got to fill this position, and they tend to hire to solve a problem. But when they hire to solve a problem, they end up hiring the wrong person, and they put them in a role, and it sets them up for failure. What a business has to do is they have to set their people up for success. So they first of all should be asking the question, if I was building a robot to do this job, what types of behaviors would I program into this robot? Would I want them more problem focused? Would I want them more people focused? Would I want them more relationship focused? Or would I want them more compliant focused? And what we've got to do is we've actually, in the short term, we've got to remove that human element out of it, because as soon as we put the human element into it, Kevin, that's when our biases come in. Secondly, we've got to have a look at what would motivate somebody to do this role. See, there's 3 types of motivation. There's biological motivation, and that's the need to eat, sleep, and urinate. They're just the basics. The second level of motivation is what we call extrinsic motivation, and that's that type of reward or punishment type of motivation, the carrot or the stick. And then beyond that is what we call intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation is the type of motivation that makes your heart tick. So when we think about these roles in a business, we've got to think about what type of motivation does somebody need to do this type of role? Are they altruistic? Does this role need somebody who's altruistic, somebody who just loves to help with no expectation in return? Or are they more commanding? Do we need somebody in this role who wants to take the lead? Or do we need somebody here who's more selfless, who's less concerned just on the dollars, who's not just looking at the return on the equity all the time? What type of person do we need? And then thirdly, we've got to have a look at the types of skills that this person will need to succeed in the role. And there's relating skills, thinking skills, and action skills. So it is the job of the employer to be able to formulate and create a formula of what the successful candidate would look like, and then go to market and find a perfect match. And when we do that, we get synergy, we get harmony, and we also get career longevity. We also get people to achieve their greatest level of success because now they're playing to their strengths.
Yeah, 100%. And Daniel, I know that you work with people to also stop them from sabotaging their own success. And you're also saying that some people are more successful than others. So I'm wondering if we can dive into that portion of our discussion today as well.
Well, I learned the hard way, Kevin. I'm my own worst enemy. I am my own worst enemy. And what I mean by that is that it's my fears that have always got in my way. It's been my doubts about my ability that have got in my way. It's been me second-guessing myself and having self-limiting beliefs that have always got in my way. I remember there was a period of my life, Kevin, where I didn't think I could succeed because I had learning disabilities. I thought that. Nobody else had told me that. I believed that, but nobody else conditioned that into me. I also had a lot of doubts about my ability. I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't understand the language properly. I'm not educated enough. And all of these became my own self-limiting beliefs. And they made me see things that weren't true. They caused me to doubt and second-guess myself, so I wouldn't chase and I wouldn't go for what I wanted. So learning about success, what I've learned is that the successful people, they seek to remove their fears. They seek to overcome their doubts and they seek to challenge all of their self-limiting beliefs. And when they do that, they can actually unlock more of their potential. According to Stanford Brain Institute, the average person uses less than 2% of their potential. Imagine that. We go through our entire life and we use less than 2% of our potential. However, once we start to remove those fears, those doubts, those limiting beliefs, we can start to unlock and unleash our full potential. And that's when we can start to be, do, and have anything that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel, based on your experience both in life and in business, I'm curious to ask you, how do you define life and professional fulfillment?
Well, I think that's the $1,000,000 question. And my grandfather used to say to me, Daniel, how long's a piece of string? And I never knew the answer. And he told me one day, and he said it's twice as long from the middle to the end. So when it comes to success, there's so many different areas of our lives, and we go through so many different seasons. For me right now, Kevin, what's really important to me is success as a father. And what that looks like in my life, it's the ability to walk my daughter to school every day. And I walk her to school, and for 15 minutes, I just get to have a really nice conversation with her. And I talk to her about focusing on what she wants. I talk to her about her goals and what she wants to achieve and how I can help her. So how do I define success as a father right now? It's having that ability to be with her every morning. And then in the afternoon, my boy comes home from school at 4 p.m. And because I'm working from home and I run my business from home, I have the ability to be with my son from 4 p.m. till late in the evening. And I get to do all of my dad duties. So that's how I define success right now. When I was younger, it was success in sports. Before that, when I was 28 through to about age 32, it was success in leadership when I had my career. Before that, it was success in dating and finding the right girl and marrying her. And then success was convincing her to give me 2 beautiful babies.
Well, you succeeded in that goal. So, I look at life as an involvement. Everything in life happens for a reason, and everything in life has a purpose. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think all of us, Kevin, we know our purpose and we dream about it. We fantasize about it when we're young. But then because of our fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs, we start to head in the wrong direction in life. But if we go back to our younger years, there's always those fantasies and those dreams. I used to dream about helping people. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I'd help people. And every time I got away from that, I lost my motivation. However, every time I came back to helping people, I felt motivated. I don't worry about sleep. I don't worry about what time I start work or finish work because I'm loving what I'm doing every day. And it's that feeling we're chasing. In my opinion, Kevin, success is a feeling. It's not a dollar sign. It's not the size of the car or the house. It's a certain feeling that we can hold on to for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and Daniel, talking about success, I know that you live in Taiwan now, but you mentioned you grew up in Australia. So I'm wondering, what has your international travel and life taught you about different cultures and how people adapt to life?
Well, for me, I didn't really feel that I fitted in Australia. And that didn't mean that the people didn't make me feel welcome. I just felt that I belonged somewhere else. Now, in New Zealand, the Maoris talk about their Tudonga Waiwai. Now, a Tudonga Waiwai is your belonging place. So in 2007, when I moved to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, the plane touched down into the airport. I walked out into the airport and walked outside, and I got hit with this 50-degree heat. And I all of a sudden felt like I was at home. And so for me, when I'm in Dubai, I feel it's like my belonging place. I can express myself freely. I kind of shed off that old snake skin, and I'm fresh, and I can be who I want to be. I also have that same feeling when I'm here in Taiwan. I'm free to go about what I want to do without any interruptions. So I think that belonging place for me is out of the country that I was born in. And what I say, Kevin, to my clients, I say, you're not a tree. You're not rooted into the ground. You're free to move whenever you need to. So for me, right now, Taiwan is my belonging place, and I feel at home right here, right now.
Yeah, there's no place like home for sure. Daniel, before I ask you how people can get in contact with you, I'm also curious to ask, if your life was made into a movie, what do you think you would want the overarching plot line to be, and the message behind your individual story?
For me, it would have to talk about resilience. I think what I've learned over the years, Kevin, is that resiliency is one of the most important skills that we have to learn. It's something that we've got to learn and we've got to relearn. So from my younger years of overcoming learning disabilities, from overcoming health and physical disabilities, from dropping out of school to getting Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue, multiple knee operations, almost getting killed by 6 guys, and all the things that have happened, the loss of business, the loss of careers. What I've found is I'm like a basketball. I just keep bouncing back. And so the title of my movie would definitely have to be about resiliency and learning that it's something that we have to learn and relearn throughout our lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. Resiliency, I tell people, is the thing that still is in your emotional tank when you run out of gas, isn't it?
Mate, 100%. You got to make sure that at the start of your journey, that tank is full of resiliency. It's that high octane fuel. It's like the jet fuel, and it's got to burn. And you need a lot of it, because once you run out of resiliency, you get knocked down and you don't get back up. Now, just north of me here in Taiwan is Japan, and they have a beautiful proverb that says, fall down 7 times, get back up 8 times. So you've got to make sure that you've got plenty of reservoir fuel in that tank to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, I have to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed our time together. And tell me, buddy, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Every Monday night here in Asia at 8 p.m, I run a masterclass, and it's called Unleashed Masterclass. And I'm showing the audience how to overcome their fears, their doubts, and their limiting beliefs. So you can go to my website, which is unleashedmasterclass.com. Unleashedmasterclass.com.
Well, fantastic. Daniel, I really enjoyed the opportunity to engage in conversation with you. I really want to thank you for being here and for your work in the space of helping businesses sort of accelerate their impact and realize their fullest potential. Your time on my behalf is most appreciated, and I want to thank you for answering my questions today.
Thank you, my friend, anytime, and I hope we can do it again in the future.